Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking this hour out of your day, wherever you are. I see Indonesia. I've got someone from France. Very exciting that you are all joining us here on a global stage to talk about AI. My name is Claire du Preez, as Megan told you at the start of the session. I'm a seasoned digital marketer. I have been in the game for a very long time, probably about 20 years now. And I more recently, I would say over the last 2 years, have been working quite extensively within, I want to term it AI first marketing. About 2 years ago, I got very intimidated, but both excited and intimidated about the world of AI and how it was influencing my marketing career specifically. And I dove headfirst. As part of that journey, I founded a community called Maiden. It's an AI learning community designed for female professionals who want to increase their AI literacy. And we meet on a weekly basis to do live learning circles where we just connect and share use cases and collectively increase our AI knowledge and fluency. It's been a wonderful journey. I owe a lot of what I know today to that community and forum. So I'm really pleased to be here to share some of that with you today. Before we dive into the content, I want you to tell me in the chat, where are you currently in your AI and marketing adoption curve? I want to just show you that you are among friends. There are so many different varying levels of fluency and literacy in AI. Nobody can claim to be an expert in this space at the moment. So very curious to hear where you feel you are in your journey. Are you in your honeymoon phase? Are you just initially excited and you're experimenting with AI? Are you facing a couple of practical realities, navigating access and security? You're starting to invest in training, seeing lots of A's come through. You're in a safe space. Welcome. Good place to be. And C's, deeper integration. Are you designing workflows? Are you solving ethical dilemmas? Are you proving value? What are you doing? Or are you D? Are you heading all the way towards mastery? You're diving into automation, maybe agents, personalization. You're really ahead of the curve right now. I'm seeing a lot of A's, which I love, because that means that you are at the start of such an exciting journey filled with so much potential. And I'm also particularly excited because I think a lot of the things I'm going to show you today are going to be very inspiring for you. At least I hope they'll be inspiring for you. And hopefully you'll take away a lot more than 3 things you should be doing. There's no such thing as a silly or stupid question. I really want to encourage you to use this hour to extract as much information as you possibly can from me around the way that I am applying AI in marketing. This does not mean this is the only way to apply AI in marketing. These are simply my processes that I've developed and designed, the way I'm thinking about AI. The one thing I love about spending time in an hourly week learning circle with my community is that I get to see and experience and hear so many different perspectives of how people are engaging with AI and using AI, and that just keeps widening my perspective all the time. So I encourage you to do the same. So we're going to go through a couple of things. And like I said, if you have questions at any stage, I would love you to please just pop them in the Q&A section of the chat interface. And Megan's going to help me keep an eye on the Q&A. You're welcome to ask questions throughout. If I see them, I'll address them as we get them. Otherwise, I've definitely left sufficient time at the end for a good time for Q&A. So think about your questions, bring them, let's discuss them. I may not have all the answers, but maybe somebody else does in the call. So if you are feeling brave and you want to contribute, you are also welcome to put your hand up, and Megan will take you off mute and you can actually say your question out loud. You don't have to just use the chat. So feel free to also raise your hand if you really would like to come off and discuss something. I want to make this, like I said, I want to make this as maximum value as possible for you for taking the time out today. So this is part of for those of you who are on the Career Accelerator program, this is part of your AI learning track. As part of your Digital Marketing Career Accelerator, you're getting access to 4 industry masterclasses with people like myself and others who are actively working in the space of AI, exploring different applications within the digital marketing landscape. And we share those insights and learnings with you through these masterclasses. So that's what you're getting access to today. So before I dive into the use cases that I'm going to share with you, the three use cases, I want to just pause and reflect on two critical things that I see routinely come up for people as they start embracing AI in marketing. And it's very foundational, and you may know this, you may not, but I'm going to reinforce it anyway because it really is an important foundational principle to know. The first is just answering the question, how do LLMs actually work and why they sometimes make stuff up? So I see a lot of people making the mistake that when they start using AI, they're actually an LLM is a large language model. So an LLM is, thanks for the question, Emily. A large language model is a model like ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other models that are quite trendy. There's Grok, there's Gemini, whichever one you have your preference for. I'm a ChatGPT user personally, but I also use Claude for certain use cases, and I'll share that with you. But I'm glad you asked that question, Emily, because I've got something about terminology later on in the session that I think was perfectly primed for your question. So how do LLMs, these large language models, how do they work? A lot of people think that they work like Google, that you can just open up the chatbot and you can ask a question and it's going to serve you the answer. And that's a mistake because an LLM is not deterministic. It's not going to give you factual information. It's going to make stuff up. And I think it's really critical that in your beginning stages of embracing AI, you know this about LLMs, you know how they work. So LLMs are not magic. They feel like magic sometimes. AI feels like magic, but they are based on probabilistic math. So Marek, yes, based on their training, they predict the most likely next word or token. Exactly that. So Marek, that's exactly what is on the screen as well. The model will predict the next token given the previous ones. What do we mean by that? You can think of a token as a word. It does not equate one word or character does not equate to one token. There is a way that the model kind of counts a token, but just think of that as a giant autocomplete or word cloud that the LLM has got in its back end, so ChatGPT is trained on all the available data on the internet and more. And what it does when you're sending a prompt to it, it's just going into this giant word cloud of information in its back end, and it's saying, what is the next most likely word I should pair with the words that have been given to me in the prompt? So it's never going to get things consistent. It's never going to get things in a deterministic way. And it is really critical that you understand that so that you have the ability to sense check the outputs and that you know that when they do this, there's going to be variability. There's always variability. And this is exactly why when you ask ChatGPT, as an example, a prompt one day, and then you go back the next day and ask the same prompt, you might get slightly different outputs. It's also why you might get a different response to what I get when I prompt in a different way to how you prompt, but we're trying to do the same thing. So please remember that it is probabilistic, not deterministic. Deterministic means if something is X, the other thing is Y. It's very clear, it's factual, it's trusted data, but that's not how an LLM works. So they're not search engines or sources of truth databases. Without enabling things like browsing and tools like some of the models do have access to now, they can be confidently wrong. And I've said the words confidently wrong purposefully because there is something called automation bias that a lot of people fall victim to. And that's because the outputs of models like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini sound so damn good when they send their outputs to the world that they can come across as confidently wrong. And you don't know that unless you are being very intentional about reflecting on the outputs that it gets. This especially happens to people when they are operating in a space where they don't have a lot of domain expertise. I've heard people say, oh, ChatGPT is just going to make certain roles redundant. I don't believe that, and why I don't believe that is because having domain expertise really counts for something when you're working with AI. Being able to actively know whether something is right or wrong is really important when you're working with an LLM. So treat them like fast collaborators. They're great for drafts, for structure, for synthesis, and always add human in the loop. So when you see that acronym HITL, which is becoming more prominent in a lot of articles and training on AI, you'll see that HITL, human in the loop, reference, and that just means that you are the pilot. You need to stay always in the process, checking what is coming out of these models and making sure that you are source checking, you're fact checking, and you're being critically reflexive of everything that they're generating for you. It really is important. People have gotten into a lot of trouble by not being the human in the loop on this. Marketers are in a great position for this because we are quite used to briefing and stakeholders. We work a lot with design teams or developers or partners, whoever it is. We often have to practice the art of briefing, and I find that having that skill to be able to brief and then reflect back on the work that someone else is giving you is quite an advantage that a marketer has when working with AI. The other parts I mentioned at the beginning, that there's two things I want to just emphasize before we dive into the use cases. The second part of that, besides understanding how these large language models work, is what is generative AI actually good at and what is it not good at? So if you have this as your compass, you also know what types of marketing activity, what types of marketing tasks are particularly suited to using AI for, or that can be augmented with AI, and what tasks are not particularly suited for AI. So things that generative AI is really good at, and specifically large language models like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, is they're really good at synthesis, being able to merge many inputs into clear takeaways. They're very good at summarization, summarizing something into a short, a long, or structured format. They're very good at research, finding angles, outlining what to check. In fact, research is one of the biggest use cases for generative AI at the moment, specifically moving into the agentic AI space, where a lot of the first real agents are focusing predominantly on research capabilities. Categorization and clustering, so finding patterns and themes in data. This is one that we're going to explore a little bit together today. Outlining or rewriting in different tones and voices, great thing for marketers. Ideation, so coming up with things like hooks, variations, alternatives, A/B split tests, whatever it is for you in your marketing capacity. They're really good at that. And then coming up with first draft codes or markups. So I'm very good at prototyping and helping you get that overcoming that blank page syndrome and getting that first draft done. And then turning unstructured to structured kind of outputs. So it might sound a bit technical, but it's very good at taking stuff that doesn't quite make sense and structuring it into something that makes sense. So tables, checklists, and JSON. JSON is just a specific output language. What are they not so good at or weaker at? Up to the minute facts and breaking news. So you're often not going to get the right latest sources on something. You're not going to get facts. You've really got to double check everything that's coming out of it. Surprisingly, they're not very good with maths and strict calculations, although some of the more powerful models, the reasoning models, are increasing in capability in this space. And a lot of scientists are using things like ChatGPT Pro, for example. Compliance and legal nuance and policy edge cases, they're not good at. Please don't trust an output of a large language model for any legal work, especially in marketing. If you are, trying to understand GDPR compliance or anything else about privacy and data, please don't rely on the truth of an LLM, because that's not quite going to be it's not going to stand up in a court of law. And anything needing private context that it wasn't given. So I think this is something else that we forget is your LLM, your chatbot does not have all the context that you do. So the quality of your output is often going to be driven by the amount of correct and sufficient context that you're providing in your prompt. So you can very quickly bias the output of working in an LLM when you haven't given it the necessary context. Very much again, in the same way that working with a very junior intern in marketing or any other field is only going to be able to do so much with the context that you give that person. So I really do encourage people to think of partnering with AI as a junior intern. So really think about it as being a junior intern, and how would you treat a human intern? How much context would you need to give that intern in order for them to deliver on your expectations and to give you the quality output that you're looking for? You've got to adopt that mindset. And the other thing that generative AI is not good for is deterministic accuracy. Again, I said that it can be confidently wrong. So please always watch out for automation bias, believing that the machine is right. It's not always right. Marek, you have asked, is the facts on news part still true now that models can access the web in real time? It is lessened, Marek. It's definitely lessened with the access to tools and real-time search capability. However, you should always stay critical. Someone actually said to me the other day that the most useful skill in the age of AI is that of being a journalist, where you actually just stay skeptical with everything that the LLM is telling you, and you need to verify it all the time. So regardless of increasing capability with these models, it is always critical that you play human in the loop and you're checking those outputs. Okay, thank you for the questions. Okay, so primer for today. And full disclosure, and I'm saying this with both excitement and a bit of nerves, because I'm doing something that I typically don't do. And I'm going to spend a lot of today's session doing live demos with you. So I want to actually, I was thinking about this. I do a lot of these presentations. I do a lot of training in the AI space. And I often find that the best way to teach the applied AI in marketing is just to show you how I am using AI in my own workflows and in my own tasks. So what I've done for you today is we've got a master use case, and ironically, or maybe humorously, the brief for today, as a group of marketers learning to be more AI first in our marketing practice, is we have been asked to design and run an open masterclass for leads and current learners of the LSE Digital Marketing Career Accelerator. The topic is the topic that you've got, the 3 things that every digital marketer should be doing with AI. So this is the brief. We are coming up with today's masterclass. And there are a number of ways that we can do this with an AI first mindset. So I wanted to show you how to think about this brief from that sort of mindset. We're going to learn 3 things, or we're going to go through 3 use cases. The first use case is turning conversations and research into decisions. So I find that this is a super powerful use case of AI in my personal capacity. I am going to go really fast through this stuff, but you will have access to a recording. So I would encourage you to go back, watch the recording, and then play, experiment, replicate the things that I have shown you that I am doing in my own practice. And that's the best way to learn. So I'm hoping that by kind of blowing my processes out into the open and lifting the veil, this will just help you feel less intimidated by start to start. So hopefully that's what you get from today. But I am caveating that with these are live demos. It's not going to be perfect. There are going to be hiccups. I'm not going to do fully fledged prompting in the way I would typically do it. But I am just going to give you an inside perspective into these use cases. So like I said, use case 1 is turning conversations and research into decisions. I'll talk a little bit more around what that means when we get to the use case. The second use case is translating ideas into working prototypes. This is probably my most favorite use case at the moment, a little bit obsessed with working prototypes. I will show you what I mean by that as well. And the final use case is turning signals into strategy. Also, I would say I spend a lot of my time in that third use case across different activities in my AI first marketing practice at the moment. In fact, I do across all of these use cases, but we're going to apply these use cases to the brief that I've put on screen for you today. So 1 brief, 3 AI first plays. So like I said, if you've got questions at any points along the way, please feel free to drop them in the chat or put your hands up and come off and ask me something. I'm more than happy to show you something or demo something or whatever you want to do to learn as much as possible in a session together. Use case number 1, turning conversations into decisions. So firstly, just a principle or a belief that I've got around marketing, and it's a principle that I've subscribed to my entire marketing career, and I'd love to kind of impart this on you as well, that effective marketing starts and ends with customer psychology. So knowing who your customers are and why they buy and why they don't. I honestly sometimes feel that the best marketers in the world are the ones who just have deeply immersed themselves in getting to know their customer. Best way to do that is to get onto calls with your customers and actually interview them, ask them, chat to them. I'm a huge proponent for this. But if you can't do that, or you don't feel confident to do that, or there's privacy reasons why you can't, a lot of marketers have access to customer data already. You'll have customer data in the form of both qualitative and quantitative data that can be used in this context, in this use case. Sales transcripts are a gold mine. So if you're working in an environment where there are sales calls and you can activate sales transcripts, being a recording of those calls, you can mine those for the most incredible insights that can really power your marketing. And I truly believe that sometimes customer insights can be one of the biggest conversion levers available to marketers ever. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get through the use case. So our stack, which we're going to use, our tool stack that we're going to use to turn conversations into decisions, and this use case is, first thing I want to show you is deep research in ChatGPT. Has anyone, tell me in the chat, just say yes, no. Has anyone used deep research functionality on any of the chatbots, whether it's ChatGPT's deep research or Grok's deep research or Perplexity's deep research? I think they all have deep research. Okay, Marek has, Emma, you haven't, Elaine, no, you have. Okay, great. So a big mix. And please share in the chat if you've got a use case. Like, what did you use deep research for? What was the reason you were using deep research? Maybe you can share that in the chat and inspire somebody else around your use case. So I'm going to talk a little bit about deep research and the value of that. The other tool is Notebook LM, one of my most favorite tools. If you have never played with Notebook LM, if there's one AI tool I tell you to go and play with beyond this call, it's Notebook LM. Notebook LM is powered by Google. They have a very fun feature for turning whatever you have got in your notebook into a private or personal podcast, which is just a lot of fun. It's a great use of applied AI it just gets you excited about the potential of AI. So definitely go and play with Notebook LM. Let me know in the chat, who's used Notebook LM? Have you used it? Yes, no? Maybe you can share a use case as well. And then finally, on the right, we've got ChatGPT, of course. Yes, it's also saying, yes, it's amazing. Thank you for showing your use case there, Tafunmi. Yeah, lots going on in the chat, so have a look, get inspired. Please share your use cases. Federica, we're going to talk about Notebook LM shortly, so I'll show you that. And then, yeah, we're going to look at Marek, scientific papers while hiking. Now, that is an interesting, a very interesting use case. I'd love to hear more about that. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing my presentation. I'm gonna go into a live demo, and we're gonna talk through all of these things. But I want to come back to our brief. Our brief is we have been tasked with coming up with today's masterclass on 3 things that every digital marketer should be doing with AI right now. That's our brief. And we're a marketer. We've been tasked with this. And why I'm saying we want to turn conversations into decisions is that every powerful marketing campaign begins, or marketing activation begins with an insight, a customer insight, or some sort of research insight that helps you align the campaign or the activation to a real need or a real pain point. So we can't do good marketing without understanding customer insights or doing our research. And that's what this is about. It's about activating research and turning it into an actual insight. So what you can see on screen now, I just want to confirm, thumbs up, say yes in the chat. You can see my ChatGPT screen. Yes, thank you. Thank you for confirming that. So the way you get to deep research in ChatGPT, for those of you who haven't used it. And again, I am just a ChatGPT user, but you could use, most of the big chatbots models have deep research capability. Grok has been known for being very good at deep research. Perplexity has deep research. I am on the paid plan of ChatGPT. I'm actually on the highest plan that you can get, ChatGPT Pro, but that's just because I am a power user and I work quite extensively with AI. But another word of encouragement, and I often get asked, yes, Marek, Gemini is very good. Another thing I always get asked is, oh, which model are you using? Which plan are you on? Are you paid or free? Should I get a paid plan? I personally, as a digital marketer right now, if you want to be ahead of this technology, I would encourage you to take out a paid plan on at least one of the models and make sure that you are getting access to the best best version of the technology capable right now, you're not getting access to that on the free plan. That's just the truth. Is this feature available on the Mac app? I can't seem to find it in GPT-5. I'm not actually sure. It should be available on the desktop app. I'm using the browser app for this demo, but we can check on the desktop app shortly. So just to show you, if you are in ChatGPT, you'll hit this little plus sign, and there is something here called deep research. And you would just click that to activate deep research before you prompt. And you can think of deep research as being your little research assistant or research partner. So I'm just going to go back to my demo, because the other thing that happens when you run a deep research report is it takes quite a long time to produce your research report. So I ran it ahead of this session so that we would save on time. But coming back to our brief, we've been tasked with coming up with our masterclass, and we want to start with insight. So I've gone ahead, and this is a very superficial prompt, again, for demo purposes only, going back to what I said right in the beginning, that I would encourage you to give it enough context and give it, give it more information to shape the output. But basically what I have said in my deep research prompt is surface 2025 to 2026 topics that digital marketers want in an AI for marketing webinar, deliver 5 themes with evidence, link and date, top controversies or gaps, 10 key terms to define for non-experts, and 3 angles with risks and assumptions. My scope is I want it to be for both B2B and B2C. I wanted to cover paid and life cycle, privacy and measurement, and I wanted to prioritize sources that are less than 6 months old. So what's critical in prompting, and I'm just using this as an example to talk to prompting as well, is constraints work really, really well when you prompt. So besides context and giving it a task and a role, constraints are really powerful. So what should it not do, or what are the guardrails that it should honor in the output that it wants to give you? So we sometimes forget about telling it what not to do, or where the guardrails are. So I have noticed that improves prompting practice. A lot of questions I get around prompting as well is, how should I go about prompting? How should I think about it? Don't overthink it. I would encourage you to, again, treat ChatGPT like an intern, as if you were briefing your intern, and just start experimenting and iterating. So I'm a huge fan of iterative prompting. So sometimes I have a loose idea. Typically, the way I work is I bias for speed. So I iterate a lot. I'll start with my idea and I'll refine and refine and refine through a series of prompts. Some people are different. So it's good to know your kind of working style with ChatGPT. Some people like to have a very detailed and extensive prompt up front and be detail oriented right from the get-go. Others like to jump in with a simple prompt and iterate and improve quality as they go. There's no wrong way. Figure out which way works best for you. So coming back to our deep research prompt, our goal here is to produce a research report that we can now use as input to come up with our webinar, and make sure that the webinar that we're delivering is aligned to the current research and the current topics that are happening out there. So this is our prompt that we've given deep research. When you hit deep research and you say go, it's going to hit you back with a clarifying question prompt, and it's going to say, could you clarify the following? So the target audience, are you focusing more on senior marketers? What webinar formats do you want? Are you interested in region-specific insights? And this will help make sure that the research is right. So again, like I said, you could have given that all in your initial prompt. You could have been far more detailed than I was in that initial prompt. But same thing here, it will just reflect back and ask me those questions. I've answered by answering each one. I've said, number 1, just give me generalist attendees. Number 2, I want tactical. And 3, I want global themes. And then it goes away. And when you run this yourself, you'll see that it says, I'm running the research report, and it's just got a progress bar. And it takes quite a bit of time. So I will often run deep research, and I'll go make breakfast or get ready for work, and I'll come back and my report is generated for me, because it does take a bit of time. But it's really, really powerful. So here you can see that my research for this task was completed in 6 minutes, and it used 19 different sources and 49 different searches. If you click on this, it will actually go and show me exactly what it did, which I always think is fascinating. These reasoning models are really, really interesting. Reasoning models are models that think. I say think in bunny ears because they don't really think. It's just that they go through a series of steps and reflect on those steps to get the best output. And you can see all of the activity in its log over here, which is quite interesting. when it runs in real time, you can see this activity in real time. Then it produces a report, which is here. So here we've got our report, AI for marketing webinar topics, and there's key webinar topics and insights. And there's a whole bunch of information here with sources around the topic that I've asked it to go and search for, which is really, really great. Now, I just want to pause there and think about the number of activations this offers for marketers. Any piece of content, any activation, any campaign that you're doing, research is available to you at the touch of a button. Like previously, it was really difficult to get this. You would do endless Google searches. You may commission a research firm to produce an insight report for you on a topic. It took a lot of work, and now it doesn't. It's just fantastic. And you can take this report and turn it into so many things. You can ask it to, write a first draft blog post on this. You could ask it to write a script for a video based on this content. You could put this into Notebook LM and turn it into a personalized podcast. There's all sorts of ways you can think about this. You could, if you were working on an email campaign, you could say, pull out 5 interesting facts from this research that I can include in my email campaign. But remember to always check the facts before you use them, because it does still hallucinate. So I have found that sometimes it still makes up stuff, and it sometimes uses sources that are not reliable or trustworthy. So it is important to go back and check. And it's given us practical webinar angles and considerations that we could take. I didn't actually review this before the session, but I'm glad it's suggested that we do live demos, because that's what I'm doing. So thank you for the pat on the back, ChatGPT. Yeah, so it's just given us real world case studies and ROI, what works, what doesn't. Really, really interesting. So what we're going to do now as part of our use case number 1, I saw, was that a hand that came up? Does someone want to ask something? Megan, I don't know if you want to see if that's a hand. They're welcome to come off mute.
Hi, just quickly on the theme of research here. In terms of audience persona, is this the way you go about it, and probably deviate from the manual triangulation and all that?
Jennings, are you meaning coming up with your persona?
Yeah, for your deep persona and all that. Is this pretty much ChatGPT can do all that without having to do any manual aspects of persona building?
Yes, ChatGPT is good for helping you build personas. Again, I would not just use deep research like this exclusively. I would always pair it with qualitative and quantitative real data on your customers. So, but what's really useful for new products and new services when they launch to markets, what I've seen a lot of companies do is they use ChatGPT to help them conceptualize personas for their product. Which is really interesting. And there's this whole movement around synthetic data, and how synthetic data being example data, not real data. But ChatGPT is really good at creating synthetic data. So it can give you a starting point on typical personas based on your product or your service in meaningful ways. And yes, you could use deep research to do research on that typical profile of person. So you could say, I think my persona is this, and this. My service does this, and this. Tell me more about who this person could be. Help me build out a persona profile. Jennings, go again.
Just quickly, in terms of sometimes if you're working with a client where there's financial constraints, you might not have that what do you call the qualitative or quantitative data at hand. I'm just wondering, in circumstances like that where you really don't have anything, could this be the primary aspect of persona building in your view?
Yes, I think you could use it as a starting point, but I'm going to caveat that by saying that you should always acknowledge and respect that as being directionally correct, an assumption that you still need to go out and prove or disprove. So I think that ChatGPT could help you get a long way with conceptualizing a potential persona, or fleshing out a hypothesis that you've got around a persona. But you should always disclose that that's not real data. It's based on research that you've conducted using ChatGPT to create a particular persona. And then you should, as a marketer, work to stress test that persona. So you should be looking to gather qualitative and quantitative data that proves or disproves the assumptions that you're making about who the persona is based on ChatGPT. But it 100% helps you accelerate persona development and get you halfway there, because it is trained. People are still using, they're allowing ChatGPT to train on their data. So you could have a competitive product that still has their training, allowing ChatGPT to do training, and you can go in and be like, help me create a persona for this product. It's a good starting point, but I just want to caveat with always saying, being disclosing that the personas have been created using ChatGPT, and you are still yet to prove and disprove that they are real personas based on real data that you're getting back from your campaigns and your marketing. And remember, data can come from all sorts of sources. You could get a lot of persona data from your Google Analytics. If you have got Google Analytics running, you've got a lot of inputs from that. You could send out short surveys. You could hop on a couple of calls with customers and ask them if they'd be happy to chat to you a little bit about who they are and what they are. Lead capture forms where you're asking people to download, outlines or content or something like that. So yeah, there are many ways. Jennings, hopefully that helped you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the questions. So what we're going to do next is we've got our research. We've got our deep research report. And what I'm going to do is when you open it, you can actually download it. So I'm going to download this report. It's going to download to my desktop. I can choose Microsoft document or a PDF. I'm going to download a PDF. And then we're going to move on to the second part of our brief, which is we're still trying to come up with our webinar topic. What should we be doing? And let's make sure that it is data backed. We want to make sure it is informed by data. We don't want to just put together a webinar based on what we think people will want to listen to. So the second thing we're going to do is we're going to hop over to Notebook LM. And in Notebook LM, what you'll see here is synthetic data. I just spoke about synthetic data, that ChatGPT is really good at coming up with fake data or mock data. In this instance, I asked ChatGPT to come up with 3 sales transcripts. So these are mock transcripts. They're not real transcripts. But let's imagine you have access to sales transcripts, or you've got access to customer interview transcripts from interviews you've been conducting, or maybe it's just survey responses, like open text fields in a survey response. And what you're going to do in Notebook LM, so this is what Notebook LM looks like. You are going to add it as a source. So you can see here, these are my sources. And I'll show you quickly how you add a source. When you hit add, you can upload sources in a variety of different ways. So coming back to that input piece as well, it doesn't have to just be a transcript. Something people overlook is links to YouTube. So if you ran a webinar or you did an event on a topic recently, you can even add the YouTube link to that event, and it can pull that in as a transcript, and you can use that. So, Jennings, this is an interesting point actually on persona development, that you could go and use, if competitor products or services were running events that were, are targeting your persona, you could go and take some of their content from YouTube as an example, and put in the link to the YouTube video here and ask Notebook LM to tell you, based on the transcript from this video, who do you think the persona is for this product or service, and get some input that way. So just try and think divergently around the unique applications of sources or inputs that you can use in something like Notebook LM, but you can add anything. You can add slides, Google Docs, a website link, a YouTube link. You can upload sources, PDFs, text, Markdown, even audio. You can upload MP3s. So I'll tell you quickly about a fun use case that I have, is that I often like to walk in the mornings before work to clear my head. And sometimes I have a great idea on my walk, and I'll just record myself on a voice note or on my audio on my phone. And when I get back to my desk, I upload it into my personal notebook, and I have it summarize my thoughts for the day, or it's my planning for the day. So that's just another use case of Notebook LM, just for fun. But coming back to our brief, we are designing this masterclass. We have got our research report that we pulled out of ChatGPT deep research. So we've done our desk research. We've got those insights around what we think are topical issues that digital marketers want to hear about in AI. Now we've got our customer insights. We have got 3 sales transcripts of people who are interested in the Digital Marketing Career Accelerator from LSE. So these are 3 sales transcripts. I have now popped them in here, I've pasted them in, and they appear here on the left. So I've got 3 interviews. I want to just caution that this is a limited sample size. You, again, often with data mining like this, you have to take the insights and data as directionally correct and not statistically significant. So just always disclose that. That is directional and it's an assumption that you are consistently working to prove and disprove. I think that's just the mental model that a digital marketer has to approach in any work. Everything is a hypothesis that has to be proven. So now we've got our sales calls, and I can ask of our sales calls, I can ask anything. So I can say, based on these calls, tell me what the primary job to be done is for digital marketers seeking AI training. Okay, so I'm going to ask it that. And now you can just think about the different types of questions. If you are stumped, if you don't know what to mine your sales transcripts for with your brief in mind, go to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and tell it that you're stuck. So go, I need to come up with a masterclass for digital marketers on AI in marketing. I have a bunch of customer sales transcripts that I would like to query for insights. What questions should I ask? And you can use ChatGPT in that way to help you get unstuck. It will give you some ideas that you can bring back to a tool like Notebook.lm, and you can pop it in here and get the insights. So here's what Notebook.lm has come up with for me, is based on the 3 calls. Remember, these are hypothetical calls. Just another call out that when you are working with transcripts in something like Notebook.lm, please always redact the transcripts. Make sure that you are not sharing anybody's names or anything that is personally identifiable in the data that you are importing into Notebook.lm. That's a general rule for responsible and safe AI usage. So they should always be anonymized and redacted. So just make sure that that is the case before you input any of the data. Okay, so here's what it's given me. In this instance, I would keep going. I might ask it more questions around what are the potential biggest barriers or anxiety when it comes to the use of AI in marketing. I would try and get extract a few more insights from this data. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to ChatGPT, and I'm going to turn off deep research in this instance. And I'm just going to say that I actually have a pre-written prompt to save us time. Give me a second. I'm going to ask it to, you have been tasked with supporting me on coming up with a webinar topic. Also, don't worry about spelling errors when you're talking to the LLMs, because it'll autocorrect for you. It still understands what you're trying to say, so I'm not even going to correct that. Coming up with a webinar topic for a class of digital marketing strategists in training who are wanting to learn more about AI in marketing. I've attached some research and customer insights. Give me 5 possible webinar angles with 3 learning outcomes per each angle. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to attach our, this was our insights report, so I'm attaching that. That was our deep research report. You could also go and do this in the same chat where we ran the deep research report. And then I'm going to say, here are the customer insights. I like to just give it direction when I'm about to paste something in by giving it a little heading. Everyone's got their way of doing that. I'm going back to Notebook.lm and I'm copying the insights and back to ChatGPT and pasting those insights that I got. And I'm going to ask it to run. Now, let me just check which model I had on. Okay, so I'm on auto. I would have, if I wasn't on a live webinar, I wouldn't be using auto. I would be using at least GPT-5 with thinking, because you tend to get better outputs when it does a bit more reasoning. So, but for speed, I've got this. So here are our webinar angles. So now our brief, we've managed to turn our conversations into decisions and insights based on research. And we can now have a higher degree of trust in our topic because it is research aligned and it is customer insight aligned. So this now gives us a starting point to say, okay, cool, we know now where to go with our webinar. So this is the first use case done. I'm going to go back to our slides and I'm going to move us to the second use case. quickly, and that is about translating ideas into working prototypes. Conscious, we only have 13 minutes left together, and I want to make sure there's time for questions, so I'm going to speed through this. But this is my favorite use case at the moment. So now we're thinking about delivering our masterclass, and I suddenly realized that perhaps there's going to be a bunch of attendees who don't necessarily know all of the different terminologies that is involved with learning about AI in marketing. And case in point, Emily asked a great question at the beginning of the session around what is an LLM. So I thought, can we create a little working app that participants during the webinar could use to clarify any term that they're not comfortable with or aren't familiar with? And that is a really fun use case for us. And it is hopefully a micro use case to inspire you to think about other ways that you can create content that is packed with utility, like actual working little apps. And there's two ways that I like to do this. There are two tools that I like to use, and it's Lovable and Claude. But I'm going to start with ChatGPT, and I'll go and do the demo for you now. Actually, let's just go back into how I would go about this. So what I actually want to do is I want to create a mini app. So what I am going to ask, and I've got my prompt prepped because it is here. I'm going to start with ChatGPT. Let me just give us a new ChatGPT window. So I'm going to say, I want to create a mini app, please. Can you give me, in this instance, can you give me a prompt for Lovable? Okay. What I'm building is a searchable glossary of common AI terms for digital marketers attending a webinar. They might hear a term they don't know, and I want them to be able to search for the term when they hear it and understand what it is. Terms that should definitely be included are RAG, LLM, HITL, human in the loop, source grounded AI, etc., etc. So I just threw in a couple of terms that are quite common to the AI landscape, and I told it to use LSE brand colors and Roboto font because that is part of the LSE experience. So I'm going to ask it, I'm actually asking ChatGPT to create a prompt for Lovable. So some of you may have heard about vibe coding. It's all about the new way that people use tools that are AI visual builders to code things and build things. And one of those visual prototyping tools is a platform called Lovable, which is really fantastic. And ChatGPT is now going to give us our prompt, and it's thinking a bit longer for a better answer. So it's going to take a bit of time. But once we have got the prompt from ChatGPT, we can go across to Lovable. And I want to show you how quickly it can spin up a working prototype that you can actively use right now to do something. While it's doing that, I want to also compare it with Claude because this is the same task is actually possible in Claude. And in fact, Claude is a little bit faster. So I'm going into Claude, and this is a really powerful use case for Claude. I use Claude for very certain things. I use Claude for building mini apps and working prototypes, and I use Claude for writing. Claude is a really good writer. So I find that the language that Claude generates is a lot more intuitive and emotional than ChatGPT. So I'm going to give Claude the same prompt that we just gave to ChatGPT, and let's see what it does. While it does that, I'm going to go back to ChatGPT. Well, actually, let me just show you. Here's Claude building it. So isn't it amazing? I just love watching this. I don't know, like I can't ever get over watching an AI just code live for me. I think it's just incredible. So Claude is busy running that prompt that I gave it. And just note that I gave it a singular prompt. I didn't give it much more than that. And it's still going to be able to give me a working prototype, which is very exciting. Let's see how ChatGPT is doing. Here it's built our Lovable prompt. So in this instance, we are simply just going to copy. It's still busy doing the breakdown for Lovable. So we'll give it a bit of time and let's see how Claude's doing. So they're both busy coding away in the background off a singular prompt coming up with my mini app that I asked. I want a link that I can share with participants in the webinar so that they can ask questions of the glossary. So anyone got any questions while we wait for these tools to do their thing? Interestingly, what I'm actually going to show you is the output that came of the one I did earlier because this is taking a bit of time, but I did this earlier. This is what Lovable produced for me. So let's have a look. There we go. On the right, this is what it's built for me. AI for Marketers glossary. It's a fully functional glossary. Obviously, I need to Tanya, why are we building a prototype? We could simply ask GPT to throw glossary terms. Tanya, I want to share, yes, absolutely. You could open ChatGPT and spend your time asking ChatGPT to clarify a term every time I mention it during the webinar. But I thought it would be a far more fun and engaging experience. So remember, from a digital marketing perspective, we're also thinking about experience. What's going to be a good experience for our webinar participants? So it would be wonderful for me to start this masterclass and share a link with you to say, if there's something that doesn't make sense at any point of this webinar, I've produced this glossary for you to go and use to look it up. It's just a really interesting, engaging experience. You can also gate this. So if you were marketing a product, you could potentially put a lead capture form on the front and actually collect email addresses if this was an open event that you were doing for lead generation. So you've got to think more broadly than just the application of getting the task done. Like, what is the real value in building a mini app for a customer to use? So I'm going to share this. I actually have to publish it, but I'm going to give you the Claude one if I can get it. Here's the Claude version. So this is what Claude has come up with for us. And the beautiful thing about Claude is I can hit publish and publish and copy link. And I'm going to share this with you right now in the chat. And you can open it up and give it a go. It's not going to be perfect because I haven't tested it. You know, you have to test these things. In fact, it's giving me some styling errors already. But you can produce these mini prototypes, these working prototypes. I'm going to click through actually on the link I've just shared with you to show you. There we go. It's live and working. So I can search for an AI term, RAG, and it's giving it to me. I think this is so powerful and such a fun activation of AI that you can build something as simple as this and use it live in a session to help someone do something in a more meaningful way. So we built that. I mean, how quick was that to build? There are so many use cases in this utility-based content for digital marketers today. So, and more content is becoming, oh, sorry, it went to host and panelists, not to everyone. I'm going to share it with you now. Sorry. Wrong settings. There we go. Okay, hopefully you can access that now. Let me know if you can get access to that, but have a click through and you can actually play with that. We've got 5 minutes to go, so I do want to pause here. And Merrick has asked, I could put in a complete transcript and potentially core readings for a lecture series and ask it to program an interactive glossary or multiple choice questions to engage with. 100% Marek, that's a wonderful use case of finding a way to actually apply your learnings and make it more engaging and interactive. We've got 5 minutes to go. I am not going to cover the last one, but the last use case is simply to use ChatGPT with data to help come up with a couple of growth experiments. And I will share a little Loom video beyond this session with that content. So I want to make sure that there's time for questions before we close. So let me stop there and then let me know if you've got some questions.
Okay, can I jump in with some questions we have in the Q&A box?
Yes, please.
We have from an anonymous attendee, how much context would you give to LLMs without giving out too much data away?
I think you've got to have guardrails for data. So like, you know, what are your guardrails? And a lot of people tend to do like a traffic light system. So think about for yourself, what is red data? So data that definitely should never be shared, things like confidential company information, personally identifiable information. Yeah, I think like, what is your red bucket that you definitely never share, and check that that's never in a prompt. Then what's your orange buckets, like stuff where you should practice caution or you can use but redact. Think about that. And then green, what is anything goes? So, and always make sure that you got permissions when you are using data or collecting data. I think this is a general principle for any marketer. We're very used to thinking about privacy and opt-ins, etc. So just apply those same sort of constraints to your thinking. But you've just got to practice common sense around what is going to be enough context, and then are there any red flags in the context? So before you hit send, check your prompt and make sure that you've got nothing in there that could be sensitive.
Great, thank you, Claire. Next one is from Rakaya, and it says, if LLM is sometimes confidently wrong, if we use the same prompts on the same apps, are we able to get the same prototype?
No, you will always actually get variability just because of the nature of how LLMs work. So they will never be consistent in their output. They can't be. They'll be vaguely consistent, but you'll never get like for like answers if you repeated a prompt in a different LLM or tomorrow even on ChatGPT because of the nature of it being like an autocomplete on steroids or like this big giant word cloud that's going to go and find specific information. So yeah, it's always going to have a little bit of variability. That's the nature of it because it's probabilistic. But the point of it always being confidently wrong is just to make you aware of being the human in the loop, making sure that the accountability stops on you. If you're trusting something out of an LLM or you're using something from an LLM, the accountability within a professional context or to a client is going to stop at your use of the LLM. So please make sure that you are checking.
Okay, and another one from an anonymous attendee. Do you recommend you using this prototype feature for clients? I've noticed the link says Claude. Is there a way we can connect with it with our company's domain or name?
So you could code with Claude Desktop, which is a way around not having a Claude projects link. But for most people, it's becoming more and more common practice to share a prototype. If it's just a prototype, I don't see any reason why you can't disclose that you use Claude to produce the artifact or Lovable. It's just a tool. So I would be personally comfortable. If you're not, then you should look at potentially using a tool that lets you publish and host and doesn't use the brand name. It can actually whitelist. So you could use Claude Desktop, or you could publish on Lovable and host your own domain, which is possible as well.
Okay, we have a question from Gwen who says, why did you use Notebook LM for the sales call rather than having ChatGPT analyze them?
What a great question. And I should have covered this one. Thank you for asking that. So Notebook LM is something called source grounded AI. Notebook LM is far more trustworthy in terms of its analysis than ChatGPT, and that's because of the way Notebook LM is designed. And because when I say source grounded AI, it means Notebook LM is only extracting information from the sources that you have given it. ChatGPT is always prone to hallucination. The top models now, like the pro models and the reasoning models, are getting far better at being more reliable and using what's called a RAG-based technology, retrieval augmented generation technology, that makes them more reliable. But there is always a chance of ChatGPT making something up. So just to be very rigorous in my data analysis, I choose Notebook LM first to get the insights and then share them into ChatGPT.
Thank you. Next one, can you create an app as fast as this landing page?
Yes, we can.
And next, for someone who is just starting out in their marketing journey and AI, do you have any recommendations for where to start and which areas to practice in?
I would look to solve a pain point that you currently have. So if there's something in your digital marketing practice that you're struggling with, whether it's writing an email nurturing series, whether it's doing some data analysis, just try and solve a problem that you already have, because you're more likely to stay invested in learning if you're working towards solving a problem you already have with AI. So pick a pain point and start there. Alternatively, rewatch this webinar and try and replicate the steps if you're feeling intimidated. So just try and emulate some of the things we've gone through today as a starting point.
Okay, a question in the chat from Jennings. YouTube thumbnail prototyping. Could this be used for coming up with an SEO CTR strong potential thumbnails?
100%. You could definitely use AI to help you come up with that. You could ask AI to analyze a bunch of YouTube thumbnails, and then you could prototype them.
Okay, we have a few more questions left, but I know we are over time. So
I don't mind answering.
do a
I don't
quick
mind
speed
answering.
run?
Yeah, we can go through the
Okay.
rest quite fast. That's no problem.
So from Marek, I have had clients specifically prohibiting Gen AI use in the contract. My sense is that this was done out of a sense that use of Gen AI is cheating and the consultant should be paid for that. Some fail to see that they could actually get a better outcome and or more quality outcomes in less time if they were to allow Gen AI as a co-intelligence. How do you overcome this hurdle that you must have undoubtedly come across yourself?
Sure, Marek, that is challenging. I don't know how long your clients are going to be able to prohibit the use of Gen AI. I just think it's becoming so prolific and permeating everything. I don't know how long they can do that unless they're in a highly regulated industry where there is a lot more of policy driving. Um, I don't know how to overcome it other than work with different clients who are keen to work on AI. It's a tough one. My clients are all very AI centric and very keen on that. So I unfortunately haven't actually had this hurdle. But I think if you can, I would encourage you to prove value. So prove why using AI makes sense for the business. So if you can connect it to business value for them and like return on investment in meaningful ways, perhaps you can get their buy-in. The other thing is to have very clear governance. So trying to, as you've quite rightly said, get to the bottom of what are they actually concerned about. Is it cheating? It's a fallacy that a consultant should be paid by the hour. You should be paid for your experience, not how long it takes you to get something done. And how you get something done is up to you. In the same way that you've used other tools to do things in the past, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to use AI. So if you've got a very clear governance policy that you're communicating to them around how you use AI, and proving to them why AI can actually get better results for them, maybe they can come to the party. But I think it's an interesting quest for you to prove ROI to business value as part of that process to win them over.
So, Shabit, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You've asked what topics will be covered in the course. We have shared the course brochure, the program brochure in the chat. So please have a look at that. If you have any further questions in terms of what topics will be covered, then reach out to an enrollment advisor and they'll get in touch with you and clarify all that for you. We have a question from Tanya. How do we understand which AI tool is accurate in which aspect? For example, Notebook LM versus GPT.
How do you answer which AI tool is accurate in which aspect? Tanya, I think the bottom line is don't believe any AI tool is accurate. So always take that skeptical lens that it is not accurate because it is generative AI. All of it's generative AI, so it's probabilistic by nature. Notebook LM, so what you're looking for is any tools that are termed source grounded, which is what Notebook LM is, or any tool that uses RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Those are two ways or two technologies that have been designed to kind of focus the AI on only using specific constraints or inputs. And those are far more reliable. Otherwise, you need to find deterministic AI. Deterministic AI is a different field, but it does exist. It's not generative AI.
Okay, and the last question I'm going to tackle, because I don't want us to go over 5 minutes, and remember that it is recorded and you can connect with us on any further Career Accelerator questions. What are the tools you recommend for creating apps? So very much related to the previous one.
For creating apps, I definitely would start with Lovable and Claude. I think Claude Desktop is quite fun if you can download Claude and actually get a paid account and play with Claude Desktop. There are so many out there. There's Bolt, there's Replit. My personal preference is Lovable. I find the UX and UI is very, very good. There's Cursor. They do have a bit of a learning curve, so you can probably get yourself like 70-80% of the way there, and then you likely face a bit of getting a bit stuck and might need a bit of technical support. But connect with peers, join communities. There's so many AI communities out there now, and ask for help when you get stuck. Better yet, if you're on the program, connect with your peers, post your challenges on AI and be like, I'm trying to create this app with AI. Has anyone done this or solved this? There is nothing like the power of collaborative peer learning. I really, really advocate for that. So please leverage that on the program. It's a real advantage for you.
I can see a few more questions coming in. Claire, do you have time? Should we wrap up here? And if there's anything further, they'll just have to join the program.
I will. What's the last questions? How many more are there to
We've
go?
got, some say the Chinese-based AI tools usually would give information that you wouldn't find anywhere. How true is this?
Jennings, I don't know. I feel like that might be a rumor. I'm not going to comment. I actually don't know. People have different preferences and different tools and different beliefs. Yeah, let us know what you find out on that one.
Okay, great. And any final notes that you could share just on the final use case? Any suggestions?
So I'm more than happy to record a short little Loom video that Megan can share with all of you that attended today on the final use case that was purely about partnering with ChatGPT as a strategic soundboard. So feeding it some data and actually helping you reflect on that data and come up with some growth experiments to improve the performance of the campaign that you were running. So I'll share that. It will be in the slide deck as well that you'll have access to.
Great.
Cool.
So thank you, Claire, very much for your time today, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. If anyone has any further, for any prospective learners, if you have any further questions on the Career Accelerator, please don't hesitate to reach out to an enrollment advisor once you've gone through that brochure. And for any learners currently on our programs, you can always ask these questions and content discussions on your circle pages. So thank you again to Claire for the wonderful presentation. We could see this could have gone on for hours with the amount of questions and interest from everyone. So a huge thank you to you. And thank you to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you.